What's up, comic and pop culture fans? This is James with Mint Hunter Comics. I gave you 10 underpriced Marvel keys. Today I'm giving you the 10 overpriced Marvel keys. This is just my opinion. There's going to be some unpopular entries in this list. Your opinion may be right. My opinion may be right. The reality is, supply and demand drives these books to these heights. I just don't really agree with them. Let's get into it. Thor #1. This is the 2014 one with Jane Foster as Thor right on the cover. It's like the second or third appearance of her as Thor. The only thing that makes this, I think, a little overrated is it's not her first appearance as Thor. Frankly, I think a lot of people that saw the new Thor movie left a little unimpressed. I wanted to ignore the reviews and just go and see it myself, and unfortunately I can say I really disliked that movie. Whoo boy, yeah, that's in the bottom 3 for me. And with so many people, I think, in agreement, I think this book is going to suffer a little bit because of that. So I think right now it's still overpriced, and I think it's going to have some shrinkage. NYX #3 from 2004. It's the first appearance of X-23, Laura Kinney. Now this book is one of those books that absolutely boomed in that whole pandemic bump that so many books got. This one just didn't really ever come down where a lot of them did. If you want a 9.4, 9.6, 9.8 candidate, you're looking at spending like $500 on a raw. That is quite a jump from where that was 3 years ago, and I just think that despite that character being awesome, it is X-23. Everything on this list I'm a fan of for the most part. I'm not going to tell you it's not a notable key. It's definitely one of the bigger ones from the last 20 years. You know, her first appearance did come out a year before in TV. It just is a surprising one to see at the $500 price. Maybe there's more movie potential for her. I suppose an argument could be made that it does make sense. I certainly would never pay anything close to $500 for that. This next one I hate to put on here because I love this book, but it's still, I'm afraid, a little overrated. Amazing Spider-Man 361, first appearance of Carnage. Here's the problem. It's like 180, maybe 200 at the highest high for those raws. There's tons of these. Even on the graded census, there's a lot of graded ones of these suckers. I do have a newsstand 9.8 myself, and it has been interesting to see the values drop drastically, but even with the value drop, I still think there's room for that to drop. I hate to say it, which is a shame because he's actually in my top 5 Spider-Man villains. I absolutely love Carnage. You know, I was a 90s kid. Of course I'm gonna love Carnage, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't very overprinted and very over-collected. Little overpriced. Let's talk about the 20,000 subscriber giveaway in which you're going to win Superboy 0 and Superboy 9. 20,000 subscribers. Like and comment down below. You're going to have a shot at winning that. Next up, we got Toxic Avenger #1 from 1991. I was surprised to see this in my research. I had no idea that places charge this much for it. But it's like a $40 to $50 book in a very, very high-grade raw candidate. That's surprising to me. I used to find that all the time. It was never a $1 book. It was maybe never even a $5 book. Something tells me that's like a $10 book, maybe $15 book through and through, which is why I was so surprised to see a $50 price tag for that. I think one thing that's cool about the Toxic Avenger, it's a cool character, and maybe that's helping his value here. I do think $50 is considerably higher than what even I remember paying for this, even in recent years. I don't think that price is quite right, and I could see that going a lot lower. I think it should be a lot lower. Next up, oh boy, I'm gonna get crucified in the comments over this one, but I'm doing it. Amazing Spider-Man 300. First appearance of Venom, only it's not. Stop it. Stop it right now. Amazing Spider-Man 299 is the first appearance of Venom. You could even maybe put an argument in for 298. I don't buy that one as much, but look, 299, he's on the entire last page as a full spread. He's even on the page that precedes that. So we're talking at least 2 full pages of this dude. That's a first appearance. That's maybe even the first full appearance. Amazing Spider-Man 300 is the first full appearance of Venom, and it is fantastic. It's an amazing book, and I think it is one of the more iconic covers, probably from the entirety of the Amazing Spider-Man run, and comics in general. The value of this, if it were based off of mostly cover, I could justify it, but I don't believe that it is the first appearance of Venom. Also, we haven't even mentioned how many of these things there frickin' are. Lots and lots and lots, and there's tons of this graded. I think it might be the, if not close to the most sent in book ever to CGC. There are lots of these things floating around. So when you're looking at like a 9.4, 9.6 candidate in a comic book shop and you see that $1,200 price tag, in my opinion, that is overpriced. Next up, Ultimate Fallout 4, another book I love here, first appearance of Miles Morales. This always goes for about $1,000, especially the ones that are still in the poly bag. You always see that $1,000 price tag on it. I have issues with that because if you get a 9.8, if you want to spend $1,000, get an Ultimate Fallout 4, you open it up, you press it nicely, and you're able to score a 9.8, obviously that's a big win. Here's the problem. The 9.6 and 9.4 and 9.2 prices are going down really hard for that book. And the 9.8's doing okay. It was a $3,000 book. Now it's like $2,500. But the other ones below it are falling drastically. So when you pay $1,000 for a poly-bagged book, don't forget how hard it is to get all those bends out of it. You're doing a lot of gambling to see if you can get the 9.8. And they grade that book pretty harsh. You're probably not going to get a 9.8. You're probably going to get a 9.6, 9.4, 9.2, all the way down to even like a 7.5, even from just the poly bag. You got to have a really good presser, and you got to do a little praying for that book if you want to try to get that one graded. $1,000 raw, don't seem right to me. At one point, maybe it did, not anymore. Next up, we got Strange Tales 169 from 1973. It is the first appearance of Brother Voodoo. At a time, I would have said this would have been an underrated book. It is now what I would consider overpriced. I think one of the reasons is a lot of people thought he was going to be in the next Doctor Strange movie. He wasn't. Now granted, that door is not closed. You could very easily have a notable character like Brother Voodoo pop up in the future of the MCU. I think it's actually more likely than not. However, I do see that the high grades of this tend to be around the $1,000 mark, even breaching that a couple times. To pay that much for a raw, despite any real confirmations of anything going to be happening to that character, that seems kind of confusing to me, especially for a book that was considerably lower just like 4 years ago. It does seem that that one might be a little pegged up by any whispers of possible rumors, and I don't think that's enough to go by. My next two books are actually Moon Knight books. The first one I got here is Marvel Spotlight 28 from 1976. I actually really like the key Moon Knight one. I think it's a really great one. First appearance of Khonshu. That's the bigger book, I would think, but this one does predate that. It's the first solo Moon Knight story. He is prominently on the cover and everything, and I think it has like a love interest first appearance in there too, but I just don't think it's as big of a key as Moon Knight #1. Maybe Moon Knight #1 should have been on my underrated, but I actually think that's right where it should be. I think this one's a little high. This one ends up being like $300 for that really sharp raw copy. Just doesn't seem right to me. I actually really liked the show. I think though, if you really want to look at the Moon Knight keys, you got to look at the smaller keys, or maybe stick to the Werewolf by Night stuff, maybe the Moon Knight #1. This certainly belongs in the notable Moon Knight keys section, absolutely. I just don't think it's that big of a deal as it is. Second to last, I said it would be a Moon Knight book, Mark Spector Moon Knight issue 57. Another cool cover here. It is an homage to ASM 300 with Spidey up there, and it is part of the flat covers that run from 55, I think, to 60, which are highly sought after. And Mark Spector Moon Knight was a run that was not being picked up as much as Hulk and Spider-Man and all that, so there are less out there. I think it's a really cool book that maybe just got a little out of hand. I've been noticing a lot of the prices on eBay for a near mint copy breach $100, which I was surprised to see. I saw a lot of like $130, $140 up there. Not a key, just kind of what could be considered a classic homage cover at best. I think the price on that book got a little away from us here. You know what I'm noticing? I'm about to go to my #1, and I didn't put one on the list, so I'm going to do it as an honorable mention. Wolverine #1, the 1988 one. You guys know I've talked about on the channel. I don't agree with that price at all. At all. Alright, you ready for my #1? Again, this is my opinion, and this is probably going to be a pretty unpopular one once I say it. Amazing Spider-Man #1. Yeah, I hate to say it. It is highly notable. First appearance Chameleon. First appearance of J. Jonah Jameson. First Spider-Man in his own title. I do think Amazing Spider-Man 2, 3, 4 are the better keys. This is a very expensive book. Very, very, very expensive. Every time I find it, it's kind of like in that low grade only. You would have to pray to Khonshu in order to get even just a 3.0 from this book. Despite that, in that kind of crusty condition, I always see the same dollar figure, $15,000. That seems to be like the go-to price for ASM #1. 15 grand for low grade. I do not believe that should be the low grade price. Maybe that should be the mid grade price of like a 5.0, 5.5 candidate in my eyes. But for a pretty rough, maybe colors faded, almost detached cover of ASM #1, I think $15,000 is wild. When you want to start talking the crazy dollar figures, I feel like it's a better bet to just go for the big one, Amazing Fantasy 15 at that point. 15 grand. For a nice 2.5 looking copy. I'll never understand it. I think that is very overpriced. Anyway, guys, we made it through. Don't beat me up too much in the comments on this one. Again, that was my own personal opinions about this stuff. I think that if a lot of you really take the time to look at those books, you might be in agreement for where I'm coming from. I know I can think of a lot more than even just this list. So I just wanted to give you 10, which I thought were overpriced. Not overrated, but overpriced. As always, guys, get out there and keep on hunting.